Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to another episode of Ink Medicine with your host, Andi Smiles. Today we have a really special guest, someone that I know that you have all been waiting to hear from on this podcast, the one and only Micah Riot.
I just want to burst out laughing.
I just want to close my eyes. I was like, I can't look. If I look at them, I'm going to just start laughing.
That was an amazing intro.
Yeah,
You're
well,
so good at this.
I feel like I was trying to emulate your very, very calm energy.
I try.
So, do you want to tell your listeners what's happening?
Yeah, so the podcast is now a year and a couple weeks old. The first full episode I released was the episode that I recorded with my best friend, Andi Smiles, who is the host of today's episode. We recorded that episode years ago, was it 16? Maybe 2016?
I believe so, because the photo you used of me to go up was that, me dressed up like a sexy pony, naked.
That was so long ago.
And I was like, wow, this is a move to use this as your podcast photo for the episode. I don't know if you have any half-naked sexy pony photos for this new iteration.
Well, that photo was used on the old podcast that is no longer.
Yes.
And I don't do the same format, so there was that picture is not in my new. But I feel like we might have to
put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're switching seats today, and last year around this time, Andi said, why don't we interview you for the podcast? And I said, how about when the podcast is a year old? And now it's a year old, and so here we are.
Yeah. So, why don't you tell everybody how we met? Because I think it's a good story as it relates to what this podcast is all about.
Yes, so we met. I was my first fall tattooing as a full tattoo artist. I believe I was just out of my apprenticeship, if not still in it. Was it 2008 or 2009?
I think it was 2009.
Okay.
And I think you were just ending your apprenticeship.
Yes, I believe it was right after my apprenticeship lasted about 9 months, and then the owner of the shop said, you're good. I need people on staff to tattoo the summer walk-ins. And so she basically was like, you're done. But that still felt like an apprentice at that time because it was not even a year since I started. And so that fall, I had donated a certificate to an AIDS event, some sort of auction.
Yeah, it was a silent auction. So it was a group I was involved with called Party with a Purpose. And we did this fundraising event for a few years to raise money for this home in Ethiopia that works specifically with children who were orphaned because of AIDS. And also children who were orphaned because of AIDS, who had AIDS and other AIDS-related or HIV-related, AIDS and HIV-related disabilities.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything specific about it, or I think I was just approached by somebody who was part of your circle, and they said, would you donate? And I said, yeah, I'll donate. And so I donated the certificate, and you won the certificate.
Yes.
Because you were there at that event. And then you came to me and got the beginning at that time of what ended up being I would say almost a half sleeve type of piece, a big solid color piece, which was really fun for me to do and definitely a challenge because I was so new. But I was like, this is so cool. It's so fun to do something like this. And I was dating somebody who shares a birthday with you or shared a birthday with you.
That's right. That's right. I was your Scorpio intel.
But specifically
November
13th.
Yeah.
It was
we're a special breed. We're a special breed of Scorpio.
Yes, you are. And I was, I remember you were you knew all this stuff about astrology, and I'd be tell me why, why do they do this? And you'd be yeah, let me tell you. I can totally tell you that.
That's right. I totally forgot about that part, that I was just feeding you all the Scorpio intel.
Yeah. But it was so weird that I was in love with this person who had your birthday.
Yeah, but then now I find it less strange because you gravitate towards Scorpios and Scorpios gravitate towards Aries. Yeah. Now, I'm married to someone who's an Aries who I met after, our friendship began. So it's there's a dynamic there for sure.
Yes. And still having the same date is strange, even though, like, yeah, since then there have been other people in my life around that. Like my stepchild is the 15th, and Stella was another kid that I really like cared for. You know, hers was, I think, the 12th. So like I have those like teen Scorpio, something about it is there for me. But yeah, it was like, this is really strange and cool. And then you would tell me stuff, and also you were like, I'm gay, but like I'm new to it. I don't know what to do. What do I wear? Where do I go? How do I talk to people? And so I was like, let me like help you out.
Yeah,
So,
we traded intel for sure.
Yeah.
It's like, I will feed you all the Scorpio facts. You have to feed me, someone who's just coming out as queer and like doesn't understand how to be in queer spaces and feels uncomfortable with my gender and my history of dating, like cis heterosexual men. Like, you were such a great person.
And you like did not really need my help. I mean, I know you felt like you did, but you just like took to it right away, and you had your dates and you had your like things.
I'm glad I took to being gay right away. I really picked up. I really picked up gay skills. I picked up the gay skills.
You did.
Immediately.
Quick learner. Quick learner. The natural. You were natural.
Natural queer. Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that, like, I remember about that time, so, like, I naively, and I think this is probably happens to you a lot, went into that first session with you with a big idea and, like, a little gift certificate. And you were very quickly like, I want to do this, but it's going to be 4 or 5 sessions. And so I was like, okay. And so we had these sessions, and we were tattooing like pretty regularly. I don't feel like there was like that much time that elapsed between our sessions. But we just sort of naturally fit with each other in terms of like our conversation and, you know, just our dynamic. But my favorite thing that I remember about, you know, that whole experience of really becoming friends with you was at our last session. The person that you shared the room with, so, you know, it's like the end, we did the tattoo, it's the last of it, and we're kind of like talking, and the person that shared the room with you was like, okay, but you two like have to be friends.
That was Anne, wasn't it? Anne Williams
it was Anne.
Who said that. Yeah.
And she was just like, you two need to be friends. I've sat here now and listened to you talk to each other for however many hours. And you two need to actually be like friends outside of this like service relationship, which I think is where we were heading anyway. But it was so validating to have like someone from the outside looking in, to see that we had that connection.
Yeah, totally. I remember that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we at that point had probably spent time outside the shop. I think maybe by that point, do you think we had?
I think you had probably like taken me to a queer party or two and helped me process through some of my femme dressing upness that was going on at the time. Yeah. But like to really have someone be like, no, you two, like this is like a friendship. And for me, like I was actually thinking about this the other day, knowing that we were doing this. Like at that point in my life, I guess we were what, like 25? That'd be about the age. I think at that point in my life, I didn't know that you could still make deep friendships. I think I was, you know, now almost 40. I know a little bit different. But I think at that point in my life, I thought that the deep friendships in your life really had to stem from childhood or like some kind of like shared experience like college.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that you thought that.
Well, I didn't really realize it until I was really deeply reflecting about like how we met a couple days ago. And that came up for me. I was like, right, because I had a little bit of shock over how quickly we became close and how connected we became very quickly. And that depth of a friendship could happen without what I had thought were kind of like the makings of a good friend.
Like the longevity.
Yeah, because I think when you're younger, you think friendship comes out of time.
Do you think that it's just different in the queer community? Like, is that, like with queers, because you share this thing that so few people in the world share, that it just is different. Like you just meet people, and if it's such a big thing to have in common that given that you have a few other things in common as well, then it will just be like, yeah, like we're gonna bond fast. And that was like your first queer. I mean, Silas was your first queer friend, but like, in like a sense of like modern adults, like, yeah.
I think it is partially that, but I don't think it's all of that, because as I've gotten older, I have made other deep, good friends who are not queer. Mm-hmm. I think that definitely becomes like a conduit or like a connection pathway. But I think that it really just is about, like, there are some people that you connect with on such a deep level that the time that maybe has built other friendships is almost like already there because of the depth of your connection.
Like, instead of doing this, is doing this. It's like
but no one can see what you're saying. So you're literally just like, there's these poor listeners are like, oh yeah.
I'm holding my arms out about 2 feet from each other. And instead of showing the length way, I'm showing the depth way, but it's the same amount of space.
Yeah.
So instead of having the length, you have the depth.
Yeah. So the depth is what creates the friendship versus the length.
Yeah.
And then in our case, we've now been friends for a very long time.
Yes. Now the length is there too.
The length is there too. So it's just become this like very, very special relationship. Yeah. And we're neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah. Which was a conscious choice. Like, it wasn't an accident.
Yeah.
That's interesting though, what you're saying about how you thought about friendships at that age, because I think a lot of people still think that and do think that, and think that longevity is also like the most important piece in a relationship. And I, as an immigrant and as somebody who's moved, like moving here at 12, a lot of people I grew up around or with, like through school back then, are also in other countries now, right? Like, they're not all in Russia, they're in Israel and Europe and States and Canada. And then having moved from LA, and I know you have some of this too, where you've moved from Hawaii to the mainland and stuff, but having that, like, I went to college in Ohio where people were mostly from the East Coast, and then like moving here to a city that I moved to because of other queer people, not because of like any really connections that I had here. It's never been about longevity for me. It's just been about like the spark, like the stuff that we find in common, or just that like energetic connection. So I never really thought about it that way before.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's like very unique and special about you, is that you are somebody who has like the willingness and the openness and the curiosity to connect with people immediately. You're quite a risk taker in that way, because I think a lot of people are really, and I will just, myself included, are scared to open themselves up to people immediately. And I'm not saying that you like are so open that you're like wandering off to join cults or anything, but you...
At some point in my life, I probably would have.
Yeah, yeah. But you've always had such an open, way about you. And we've, again, been friends for a long time. So I've seen you in like a lot of like phases of your life and in different types of like social situations. And, we all grow and change, but that core essence that you have, where openness, curiosity, and like bravery in getting to know somebody and being open to connection quickly is something that you carry with you. And that's not common. It's very unique.
You can also be starting to make me cry on the podcast. We're not doing that.
New goal for the next 30 minutes is to make Micah cry.
It will be easier than you think. I think, though, that is interesting. I've thought about this through the years, is watching other people do it in the shop. People we just mentioned, other people, connect very fast with their clients, create a very intimate environment very fast, and sometimes not have boundaries and not respect those boundaries. And that was what I was like very much modeled as a young tattooer, and then had to undo in myself as I grew up as a tattooer and as a professional. And so something I'm watching for in Sailor, trying to like help her see what is the health, like how far to go in connection, when to like feel that boundary, when to stop, when to pull back. And I feel like that's a thing that comes with years. So
yeah. What are your flags for that? Because I mean, I'm somebody, I really admire this quality about you, and it's something I would like to be able to do more. But then I don't. I'm more of a guarded person because I'm worried about just like, vulnerability and all of that stuff. So how do you know when it's time to put up a boundary?
I'm such an feeler, an intuitive person that it's just something I feel. And I think I just know, I know how it feels to overstep people's boundaries and to have mine overstepped. And I know how it feels when I let it go on and let the person do it over and over and over again. How I just get to a place where all I can do is reject them. And I hate the way that feels. So yeah, I'm like more careful now, I guess, at the start, just like observing more, noting flags more, and not jumping all the way in, but being like, I'll wade in like fairly fast, but not like jumping.
Yeah. I think that is part of like, I've noticed that change with you too. But it's interesting because, yeah, you will wade in, but you'll still wade in faster than most people would.
Yeah. And also if I really like somebody, I'm just like, I love you.
You are. Which is actually another thing that I've been thinking about with you. Again, thinking about this podcast. Because like, we're joking about me interviewing you, but one of the things that I wanted from this interview was for people to really like know and see you the way I do. Because I think the people listening, some of them are in your closer circle and probably have more of the similar experience I have with you. Some of them may not be. They're clients or people who've never met you. But one of the things about you that I also admire so much is how you love people and the generosity of your love.
Trying to make me cry.
Yeah, you go. But I'm curious, like, what do you think about that? Because I've told you this before, and I think other people have told you as well, that you are somebody who loves deeply and generously.
It's, so I've mentioned this teacher now a couple times, James Olivia, that I'm taking this course with. Mm-hmm. It's not a course. I don't know what the fuck it is. Something they say is, they say about themselves, I've realized that in order to teach somebody, I have to decide to love them. Mm-hmm. And so they say that I take on students having already decided that I love them. And when we chatted about this, actually don't remember our second part, if we had said this on the air. We definitely said it to each other, but we had chatted for longer than we recorded. And I said, that's how I feel. Like, I feel like I don't work with anybody that I don't already love. Mm-hmm. And so it's easy to just like love them in the way that they can take it. Like I have clients that I'd work on them, feel whatever I usually feel when I work on somebody, like I feel care for them. I feel like I want to do whatever it takes to like help them heal, help them like become more whole. But I don't feel like they have a connection with me. So I'm totally like, I'll let you go. Like, if I'll probably never see you again. It's fine. And then they come back. Mm-hmm. Right. And I'm like, but we didn't even have a conversation. Like, I knew what I felt, but like, you were just in your own little world. Like, you didn't even talk to me. Right. So.
You don't think they felt it on an unconscious level, though? That care?
Maybe. But not everybody's sensitive to this stuff. Right. Mm-hmm. Some people block it out too, subconsciously or consciously. And then they come back to me and I'm like, oh, we do have a connection. Like, you felt it. Because they'd be like, oh yeah, no, I had such an amazing time here. I felt so held. I felt so cared for, mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, of course I'm back. Like, I want more, another piece or whatever. So I know that like things are happening, whether or not I'm like saying it out loud, whether we're having a conversation, whether we're exchanging information, like it's still happening. It's cool. It's like spiritual, it's
yeah.
like not describable and just like.
Well, it is something that, you really carry with you, like, I guess like carry as in like put out into the world. Because I think even this point where you're thinking, oh, these people are like in their own world and they're not really, like we're not having like a deep conversation while I tattoo them and hitting some like next level of our relationship. They're still feeling something from you. And whether or not they're like super sensitive, like they felt something. And I think it's like the quality of your love and the quality of the way that you genuinely like really care about people's well-being.
I do. I really do.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they are in my circle, like they came to me to get tattooed by me, they're like I feel like I have these wings that are really big and they're spread out over everyone I've ever tattooed. That's like thousands of people. I chatted about this with James Olivier too. I was like, it's so hard for me that like I'm not in touch with everybody I've ever tattooed. You know, it's like thousands of people. Clearly I cannot be in touch with all those people.
But you are in a way.
In a way, because
right?
I'm in their skin.
You're in their skin, and they may not consciously think of you, but, you know, even when I look at my tattoos that are not done by you, which are now few and far between, you know, there are moments where I really remember the experience.
Yeah, and so like they might think of me or they might not, but, you know, I was like, I want to like literally be texting with them every once in a while, being like, how are you? And like, how's your kid? And like, whatever happened with that job you hated, like whatever, you know, like these things. And I was like, clearly that's not realistic. And James Lloyd was like, that's how I feel. Like, yeah, like everybody, I think about people I've taught years ago, like all the time. So it's cool to encounter another person that holds space and feels similarly about their people as I do.
Yeah.
In that way of like, cause I was like, you know, when I watched that cult documentary that we were talking about,
Twin Flame?
the Twin Flame documentary, I was like, I feel a little bit like a cult leader.
So you're not joining the cult? You're going to go lead the cult?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me your pitch for your cult.
The cult of tattoo love.
Yeah, but like, what's the pitch? Like, what is your preaching?
That's all.
No,
That's all
if you are going to lead a cult, you have to have a clear message.
I think, though, it's sort of like we're all, like, I don't know, it sounds so cheesy. Like, we're all connected. And once we're connected, we're really connected. Like, we are all connected, but then we can also, like, we literally connect through energy exchange, through doing art, you know, being together. Like, so when I did ayahuasca, right, one of the things that the goddess told me is that every time you create something new that wasn't there before, you're God. You're being God. You're practicing God skills. That could be like a drawing on a napkin you do in a bar. It doesn't matter what it is. You create something new. A conversation can be that, right? Like you having a conversation that's new. It never existed before. So when we're in that space of, if I'm working on somebody, it's their energy combined with my energy, things I might have said or told me, or things that they didn't say to me, but we create together. So we're God together. And when you're in that divine union, you're connected for life, right? And so that's the cult. Like,
you will now have many DMs to join your cult. You almost have me joined, and I'm like the most skeptical person. But you're not wearing the right outfit.
This is my outfit. We all wear bralettes.
You're like, is it the cult of tattoos or the cult of no bras?
You have bralettes and sweatpants.
Bralettes and sweatpants.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what will compel me to join your cult is not only the beautiful message of divine creation and co-creation, but the fact that I don't have to wear an underwire.
Exactly. But see, this is what I'm talking about as far as like how I feel about it's. So like I used to feel like, you know, okay, I was having these experiences doing this work with people, but I wasn't as myself. Like I wasn't enough. Like I was like young. I didn't feel powerful. I felt like I didn't have my shit together in whatever ways. I felt like I was bad at like relationship love, or like, you know, finding like the right people to date. And I was just like feeling so heartbroken about basically everybody I ever dated. And then like at this age, at this stage in my life, I mean, I know that this is the natural progression, right? You like get towards your 40s, your middle age, you feel more secure in like whatever way you are. Like you care less about how your body looks. You care less about what people think of you. You're just like, I'm doing what makes me happy, what makes me feel good. And then coming into a balance with like my relationship too, it just feels so, things feel like a lot more, I can hold more, I can be more of a cult leader instead of just like a kid who is like, oh, I'll like tattoo you and like, oh, we have this cool connection. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to like hold my own energy, you know?
But I think this is like really interesting because like what I'm hearing you talking about is the, I would say, like spiritual and emotional evolution of what this work means to you as the person doing the tattooing. And so where did you start then? Like when you first started tattooing, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but like just to be more like pointed about the question, where were you? How did you feel about the act of tattooing?
It was magic. It's always been magic for me. I always thought it was just so cool to draw on the body. Just the idea of drawing on the body with pens and pencil, like with markers, you know, like I did that as a kid. And then I was like, the human body is so beautiful, and like to be able to draw on it is so cool. And then to leave a permanent mark is so powerful, right? So I was like, it's such a powerful place to be, and also so magical. Like it always felt like alchemy and magic to me. And when I started tattooing, because it was sort of by chance, you know, like I met Idexa at a party, and she wanted to, oh my God, she wanted to date me. And so we dated, and I was scared of her, but she owned Black and Blue. And I was like, seems like a cool entry, like a cool way. Universe is sending me an entry to this world. And also she and I weren't going to do that together. It was like, if I was going to tattoo, it wasn't going to be because she taught me to, but it was like a step towards it. And then I fell in love with her. And then I did whatever she wanted me to do. So she wanted me to like order supplies, to manage the shop, make sure the phone was answered and the people in the front were talked to. And so I did that stuff for her. And then someone else in the shop said, hey, I like you. Do you want to be a tattoo artist? I'll teach you. And I was like, fuck yeah, I do. And then every time I tattooed, it was just so exciting. It was the most exciting thing I'd ever done in my life. You know, I was just so into it. I was at the shop 7 days a week, all day. Like, if I could tattoo, that's all that made me happy. And then when she and I broke up, she wanted me to leave. But I was like, please don't make me leave. Like, this is all I have. And like, I really want to tattoo, and I won't be here the days you're here. And, you know, and so she let me stay, and I finished my apprenticeship, and, you know, I got my career, my sort of purpose out of that relationship of sorts. And I'm grateful for that. But it's just always felt like such magic to me, and like all that was important to me. But it didn't feel like my identity or like who I was didn't matter. I was like, I get to do this cool thing. And that's all I want to do. I don't want to go to graduate school for anything. I don't want to serve tables for tips. I don't want to do anything else. I just want to do this. Everything else was just to like make money and get along and like find a way to pay rent. But this was like passion. So tattooing was just magic and passion and everything. And then, you know, I went to a different shop, and then I was on my own. Like,
yeah. I feel like, because those are like the early years.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, we just talked earlier about like the now years.
Yeah.
But there were some middle years, which I remember, you know, being your friend in those middle years. And my interpretation of those middle years was that tattooing was really kind of more like a business to you. It was like, especially when you went out on your own, it's like learning how this thing becomes really like your career and your business. So, and you know, you probably have different ways of thinking about those years, but like, what about the middle years?
I mean, it's always felt, I can always get excited about tattooing every day still, right? 15 years in, if I'm like, oh, I'm tired, or I'm grumpy, or I'm grumpy, or something's happening, I can still be like, but I get to tattoo today. Like, what will that look like today? You know, so I can still get excited. And in between, there was a lot of dynamics, like being in shops, there's always dynamics. There's other tattoo artists with their own egos, their own stuff, their own stories, and people can't keep that shit separate. Like, they just can't. So there were dynamics to work around for the first 6 years of my tattooing career. So it was like dealing with that, plus just trying to like build a clientele, build my portfolio, get better at what I was doing. And then going out on my own, I was like, okay, I can breathe a bit more. I'm not paying rent, like I'm not paying 50% rent to a shop. So maybe I can tattoo a little bit less. I don't have to share space. I can do whatever I want. But then it was like scary, like, oh my God, now it's just me, right? Like
Yeah,
decisions I make.
Remember that.
Yeah.
Move
Like
to
will all
active
affect me.
space.
Yeah. And like, what if I don't have enough clients? What if not being part of a shop is like a big deal and like people don't want to just come to me? So it was a lot of that. And that's where I was like, okay, it's not just magic, it's also a business. And I have to think about how I'm going to make this sustainable. And like tattooing always felt like, you know, because I worked for $6.50 an hour for so long, that when I started to make tips, if I could make $1,000 a week, I was like, oh my fucking God, I'm so rich, right? Not a week. It was like, yeah, right. So it was like 4,000 a month. I felt so rich making 4,000 a month. Like I'd never made that before. I was like eating buy right food, you know?
Yeah, I remember. You were really into buy right.
Yeah,
you were a big fan.
I was there every other day buying everything.
Which I love that is like our epitome. At that time of our life, I also thought you were very fancy. I was like, oh my gosh, Micah, I'm going to Micah's house. And Micah has like an $80 bottle of whiskey and like buy right, like orzo or whatever
That's
was.
so funny. You barely would let me buy you a drink at a bar at that time.
Yeah.
I had to convince you.
I know.
I had to sit you down and be like, look, I'm making good money. Let me just buy you a fucking drink.
I do remember that conversation.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes.
But yeah, no, that was like my feeling so rich. And like, you know, I had my lover in Germany and like I would go to Germany and I was like, I'm living the high life. But like I wasn't saving, I wasn't investing, my rent was so cheap. Like I was paying under $1,000 for that studio for 9 years. He never raised it a cent. It was amazing. But yeah, and then being at Active Space, I was like, okay, how can I secure some sort of future for myself? Then I got Lulu. I had to get a car. I had to move to the East Bay. My rent went up, like, right, expenses compiled because I made decisions about Lulu, moving, car. So yeah, it became more about a business. Like, how do I set up a business? How do I run a business? I'm not a business person. I'm bad at charging my rate. I'm bad at doing paperwork and taxes and like QuickBooks, like all that shit. Like you were helping, you know, it was like asking you for help with that. But it was just never was like my forte. And then I was like, if I did go to school, I'd go for a business degree. Like I want to know how to do this well. Mm-hmm. But it still just was never that important to me. Not as much as art and the people.
So, okay. So these are the middle years. This is you becoming like, okay, it starts as magic and then magic needs to support you. Mm-hmm. And earlier tonight, we've talked a bit about like where your business is at right now. And so, and we just talked about this evolution of tattooing being spiritual co-creation, the beauty of that. So like, how did you then go from into the balance, I guess? Because to me, it's like, okay, now you're in balance with like the magic and the business. Sort of. You are. You are more than you think you are.
That's probably true. I do feel like, you know, I'm like, yeah, okay, I have a little bit of something to fall back on if something happens. Like, that feels good. And, you know, just people around me have more. So I'm like, I could ask for help if I need it. Like, back then, nobody had anything, you know?
Yeah, you were the person that was like, I will ask Micah if I need help.
Totally. Yeah, I guess so. It's in balance now. It feels... Yeah, in some ways it does. In some ways it doesn't. I think taking on an apprentice is another way that I am like more grown, you know, like taking responsibility for somebody else, even knowing like I'm not responsible for her. She's an adult, but I want to help her get to a really good, stable place on her own 2 feet. Because right now, yeah, like she's not fully reliant on herself. And I hope that she will be by the time we're done. Not that I hope we're ever done. Like I hope she, you know, sticks around my life forever. But it's cool. It's cool to be like, actually, I do have something to offer somebody, like not just a client who wants a tattoo, but like a young person who wants a life path. That's really cool. And like definitely another, you know, like, yes, I'm learning as I do each tattoo, but it's a different kind of learning. Right?
So what's the learning now?
When you're teaching somebody something, you know, you learn what you know more. Mm-hmm. And you also realize, like, you have a way of passing the information on that you didn't know, like, how you would do that, but now you know. and you just learn like, right, things about yourself, like what is easy for you to explain and what isn't, what things are hard about sharing space with somebody again. It hasn't been hard, but it could be, you know, as like there's more people in the shop, which I have less tolerance for post-pandemic, just like more people around me. So it's cool. It's cool to be like, this person trusts me, I trust them. We have this like symbiotic relationship.
So what do you think then? Because there's definitely, I have seen like a lot of growth for you in the last, like year and a half, taking on Apprentice, starting the podcast. I think that was like a big step.
Into cult leadership.
Into assembling your minions.
Exactly.
You know, I definitely I felt like some of that shift. And I think anytime you're a business owner, it is really hard to acknowledge how far you've come. I mean, even just now, you know, like I'm outside looking in, but also close enough to get a lot of the details of what's going on in your life and your business. And you're like, oh, I guess I have, but outside looking in, I'm like, you definitely have. You know, it's really hard for us to see that about ourselves, and self-employed people, I think, are naturally hard on themselves. But you have really taken your business to another level, both from like a business perspective, but also in the way that like you interact with your business as yourself. But I am curious, what do you think that next layer is, like, for the future?
I mean, honestly, I feel in some ways, business-wise, that I am perhaps at the edge of business capacity as what it is right now. And that is partially like bringing in a sailor and having that, you know, like, I don't know if I'm going to stay in California forever. I don't know how long that...
We don't say that.
We don't talk about that. But, you know, it's like, I will definitely be around to make sure she's on her feet. And then my dream is that we maybe expand together, right? Like if we want to move into a bigger space, maybe have another person work with us. If she wants to take an apprentice at some point, like grow our little family. So that is a way to expand. And then the other piece is the podcast for sure, is because I'm like, I can't work more than I can work. And I can't raise my rates like astronomically, universally forever. I mean, inflation-wise, sure. But, you know, it's never going to be like, I'll be like, oh, now I can charge $1,000 an hour. And I'm like, good. So I still have to work a bunch of hours, but maybe some energy can be spent towards making, for example, media like the podcast. And maybe it can at some point be something bigger than it is right now. If it never becomes that, that is fine. But I'm hoping that maybe it will, and then it will give me more options. I would love to expand my channels of revenue as myself, like, right? Not just as a tattooer, but like as who I am, more of who I am.
Yeah, it's like more of the full identity coming out. Because, I think a lot of people know you as a tattoo artist and a very talented, I would say very successful tattoo artist. But they don't know the other artist parts of you.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've had like, over the years, I'd have, ideas like the queer finishing school, right? Like that would have been so cool to do. I feel like I don't have the energy or the resources to really make that happen given full-time tattooing. I tried it in the pandemic because I had the time, but again, like it just didn't feel fully possible. So I have other ideas, and I like to like make My Little Ponies. That's a new thing, like making art for the sake of art, not for the sake of skin is new. Like enjoying just like drawing something cute and being like, why not? This could be a cool t-shirt. This could be a little sticker that I could sell. Who knows if that's something that can be a revenue of some sort, but I'll try. But yeah, just doing a few more things and maybe, what is the term? Multiplying your revenue sources. That's not the term. Diversifying. Because I love tattooing and my body has only so much capacity and my time and my energy. So I guess that's the next step, like new generation, perhaps expanding the shop later. using more of who I am to create more things, to be God in more different ways.
We're gonna have to do this annually, because I want to ask you a year from now, because
what that looks like.
Yeah, like, where are you at now? Because, will all of those things be fully manifested? Probably not, because like growth and change takes time.
Yeah.
But some of those things will be manifested. You'll be a year into having an apprentice, and like
she'll be tattooing full force.
Yeah, and a year later, what have you learned about yourself? Because everything that you're talking about, and I think I, like, as your friend, love your desire and like wanting to explore showing up with more of who you are that isn't just the tattoo artist in, like, I guess, like the work part of your life, because you do show up that way outside of career profession. But I know, like, things like the podcast have been making you really happy, and you've been exploring a lot of different artistic mediums and just expanding more a bit of that side of yourself in a more public way.
Yeah, part of it is I definitely have some like weird, like, sort of capitalist shame around it, where there's a transactional nature to a service you provide, no matter how spiritual it feels, right? Like, somebody wants a thing, they want art on their body, I do the art, they pay me for it. Like, that feels fine and fair. Whether or not I'm good at charging is another point, but like the idea of it feels fine and fair to me. But then to be like, well, I want to make the podcast, I'd love to get paid for it, that feels shameful. I want to make cute little drawings, I want to sell them, I want to get paid for that. Like, that feels shameful too. There's like a piece of me that has a hard time with like, well, yeah, why can't we do and be all that we are and have our needs provided for? Like, it's just not the way our world works. And also just like trying to capitalize on one's talent or one's like joy, or yeah, like monetizing things up just to make you happy. But also at the same time being like, but I don't want to have a job that makes me not happy, right?
Well, I think that's the hard thing, right?
Yeah,
because
hard thing.
You're saying this and I'm thinking, but also part of capitalism is that we produce for the sake of production and not for the sake of like happiness and joy and passion and creativity and energizing and, putting something beautiful out in the world. I think this is a really interesting thing about capitalism, because we often think that charging money for something is capitalism. Like, we just kind of equated
it's easy to do that. Yeah.
Where the, worst parts of capitalism are so much deeper than that. Right? It's
like
exploitation, it's extraction, it's, output for the sake of output. It's individualism. And nothing that you're talking about is any of those things.
Yes, but I, an individual, deserve to get paid for these things that I do that make me happy, while you, another individual, work a job that you probably hate, not you specifically, like a consumer, right, of something that I provide. And so it's not essentially exploitative, but it can feel like I got lucky and I get to do this cool thing that I love that barely feels like work at all. And everybody else has to go to work and like do a job that they feel is work.
It's not luck, though. That's not luck to me. That's you making decisions throughout your life.
Yeah.
That were really rooted in what you value most and really rooted in the things that are important to you. Like, we just talked about co-creation and the way that you love and having wings over, like, all of that stuff goes back to your core value set. Again, coming back to this point of like being courageous and being brave, like, you've lived your life in a very brave way, because what you've done is you have always like followed your values and followed what's most important to you, that's going to make you feel happy, but also like content in your way of showing up in the world, versus following external messages It's not luck, though. That's not like a thing that's lucky. It's intentional decisions that you have made. You've just been, I would say, maybe braver than some other people.
I guess the luck piece feels like I met the owner of the best shop to have an apprenticeship at a bar, and she wanted to fuck me, and that's the luck, you know?
It's not, though, because all of us have had opportunities cross our lives, and we have made the choice whether to take them or not. Mm-hmm. You know, we all have to be accountable to the things that we have and haven't given up. So again, I don't think it's luck. I think a lot of it is about intuition and, you know, well, privilege is there as too, but privilege is not luck. Privilege, that's a different conversation, right? But it also has to do with some of the choices that we make. Mm-hmm. And you have made choices. Again, we've known each other for 15 years. I've seen you make a lot of choices. Some of them I've been like, I don't know. But I think the ones that really matter, you've made choices that I think a lot of people would have been really scared to make. Mm.
Yeah, I mean, we all have our own sets of things. And thank you. I mean, I love hearing you talk about how you see me. It's like very cool and flattering. And, but yeah, like I feel very seen, you know, by you. And of course, like the longevity is also really special, even though that piece has never been the way that I base like depth of love on. But like in our case, it adds also because it's hard to believe somebody when they tell you like how amazing you are. It's hard to believe them in general, but I think it's easier when like, you know, that they have seen you like through, you know, decade and a half of time. Mm-hmm. And also like, I've always just had this like amazement at all that you are and like all that you're able to accomplish and all that you are able to put your attention on at the same time, like how you can hold, you know, job, hobbies, relationship, friendship, like all with equal vigor and like equal attention and love. Most people can't do that, you know? And so like, no, you like do really see me. Like I can believe the things you say, you know, about me.
Yeah. Well, I hope that also this experience is like the people listening to this who again, maybe have contact with you in ways that are not as close as we have contact, get more of the sense of that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you. It's really special to be on the other side of the microphone.
Yeah. I do have one more question for you.
Okay.
Switching gears a little bit, because listening to your podcast, you talk a lot with folks about their tattoos. And especially in light of like everything we've talked about tonight, what is the experience for you now getting tattooed? Especially after having created so much space for people. What is it like for you now?
There was a point when I was like, I need to be more covered so I look like a tattoo artist. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I'm going to get a chest piece, I'm going to get a back piece. Sleeves were like never as much a part of it for me because I've always been like, I need to be really careful with my forearms and my hands so I can really enjoy things they're harder to cover up. There's less skin, you know, etc. So I got my chest piece, I got my back piece, I had my chest piece redone.
Yes, I know.
So it was like the process of years of just like getting tattooed because I wanted more coverage. And like I do love what I have and it's meaningful and all that. But there was the like just the time, energy, money devoted to just like being more covered. And then the little bits that I gotten since just for fun enjoyment, like my ears and my hands and stuff. And now I feel like I'm another stage of it where, yeah, I'm ready for my forearms to see those things every day and like make decisions that I won't want to change my mind on, at least for the time being. Because yeah, like you can't see me through the microphone, but I also had my entire half sleeve on my left arm redone. I'm gonna just let's put some black over that. It's fine. Yeah, it doesn't need to be that thing. It can just be put some black, like whatever basic shapes.
I actually love this. I don't want to derail too much, but when you did that redo of your half sleeve and of your chest piece, it was such a mind fuck moment for me, because we have so much association with tattoos being permanent and all the permanency that comes around. And you, especially your half sleeve, it's totally different. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not what it used to be. And it really, I just had never thought about the fact that there could be an impermanent nature to tattoos. Mm-hmm. And then when you changed a lot of the work on you, because I think they kind of all started to happen around the same time.
It was all done by the same person, the last person who was working on me, Hannah Wolf. Yeah, and I asked her to redo my chest. It was very specific. It was too bright, and I didn't like the face of it's a bird. I like the wings, but the face, and there was just pink and teal, it was too much for me. And so I asked Anna to redo it, and I just trusted her. I knew she was amazing artist, and there's a really beautiful realistic work, and she did such a beautiful job. And then I was like, yeah, so if you want to keep working on me, could you do some black work on my arm? And all of this was I didn't like the face of the bird, but Liz had issues with my arm where she'd be like, that is weird, it's creepy. She was creeped out by some parts of it. No, it wasn't anything gory, but it was just, she just didn't like how it looked. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll cover it up for you. Basically, it was for her, because she gets to see my body more than I do, right? Our partners see our bodies more than we do in general. So I was like, yeah, you deserve to look at something you like seeing every day. And there's other parts of my body of work that she's like, can we cover that up?
And you're like, not everything.
Right.
This is not your personal canvas.
Kind of how it feels. And I kind of like that. I like that she cares. And then I'm like, really? Who's going to pay for all this? You? No, it's not going to be you. But yeah, I'm just in this place where I'm done with me feeling like I'm covered enough to be a legitimate tattoo artist. Although I do want some neck stuff. I mean, and now
I think we said we were going to get neck tattoos for our 40th birthdays at one point.
Did we say that?
We said that when we were 30. We were like, oh, well, we'll get neck tattoos when we turn 40, because we're that's so far away.
And, well, are you ready?
I mean, I could get a neck tattoo.
Yeah? You think so?
I think once your hands are done, it kind of becomes I
think it's different. Still, neck tattoos are more intense for people.
I mean, I'm not talking about all the pain stuff that I'm scared of.
I don't mean intense in that way.
I think they actually look really hot.
I think they look hot, too.
I think they look really hot.
There was this girl who identified as a neck tattoo sexual.
I mean, I want to be somebody with a neck tattoo that turns somebody into that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, think about it.
Think about it. Our 40th birthdays are coming up very soon.
You have a year-ish until yours.
I know. You only have a few months.
I do. It doesn't have to be on our birthday. We can start planning for it.
The year we turn 40. Okay, we're digressing way too much about our neck tattoos.
So I have plans to work with a tattoo artist that I recently found out about for my left forearm, and I will let her have a lot of freedom. But yeah, I was saying I was busy for a bunch of years just getting covered. And then I was busy covering up some of the stuff that I had gotten. And now I'm ready for more fresh skin work. And I'm choosing somebody based on style instead of being oh, I want a thing and I know you. So will you do this thing for me that I think you'll be fine for? Now I'm this person does decorative black work, which is what I really like now. And I will let her have a lot of leeway. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's just, yeah, I know what I like now. I want that. I'd love to be more covered. And I'm ready for the next stage, I guess. Yeah.
So of your tattoos now.
Yeah.
Because people always ask me, I get asked this question a lot. You probably do too. What's your favorite tattoo?
I mean, it changes, right?
Right. Well, that's the point. This problem. You're that doesn't work like that. You don't have a favorite tattoo. I think you have a tattoo that in certain moments of your life you feel really connected to.
Right.
And it can either be sometimes it's the newest one you got. Sometimes it's one, I have a lot of times recently, my older tattoos, they're bringing up new thoughts and feelings and reflections on the time of my life I was in, what they meant then, what that lesson means now, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what tattoo are you feeling most connected to right now?
I mean, I have a couple of tattoos that I would say are my favorites for different reasons. So I'll answer your question from my own angle. I think just my blanketly favorite is the stars here. You can't see it on the mic, of course. I will describe it. It's on my right hand. It's a bunch of like hand-drawn looking stars that run from my kind of over my wrist and onto my hand. And it was done by a person that I had guests at my shop. Not really guests widely, but just for their own clients. They came through last year. They're just somebody I admired online for a while. They're a writer and a really cool human, and they ended up doing this on me, and I love it. It's hand-poked. And I just say I love the placement. I love the way it looks. So that's my favorite. As far as that goes, I see it a lot. I do love this half sleeve. I think it's just like badass. I love black work.
The cover-up half sleeve.
The cover-up half sleeve, it's all like pretty solid black work with kind of clouds and stars and the sun. But then like my sort of spiritual favorite is actually one that you can't see because it was done without ink. It was done by, so the lover I had when I met you, who died of stomach cancer in 2016.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. They tattooed, I let them, so the first time I went to Germany to visit them, they wanted me to tattoo them. And so I tattooed this wild roller coaster thing on their legs, which was, I was so nervous about that, but we did it. And we were playing with the machine, and I was like, why didn't you tattoo me? And they were like, okay, fine, but I will do it without ink because I don't want to have like do this fucked up tattoo on you. And I was like, no, like please just do it with ink. I don't care. They're like, no, I will do it, but no ink. So they tattooed up my thigh, and it said asterimo, which in Greek, they were Greek. It means my little star. And it's no longer there.
But it is. And what's wild is that when you were over at my house getting ice, I was putting a little food away, and I was looking at your fridge, and I saw the photo of them holding the tattoo gun.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know this was not a setup question of some best friend knowledge that I've suddenly made into a thing. But it's just interesting because I was looking at the photos on your fridge and thinking about that person as well. So there you go.
Mm-hmm. If I could find a picture of how my leg looked with that tattoo, because what happens if you tattoo without ink, you end up with like a red line where it's like a scratch, but it lasts for a little while. It lasts for some days, maybe a week, maybe two. If I could find a picture of that, which I took a picture of, I would tattoo myself with it. But I don't know if I could find a picture. But it's funny. There's the picture on my fridge is them holding the machine, tattooing my leg. That's exactly the moment.
Yeah.
I should put that picture somewhere in the show notes.
You should.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially because it came up on and off air, we'll say.
Yeah.
Should we end with the question that you ask everybody?
Yeah. Sure.
I don't know if I can get it word for word.
It's okay. Just however in your own way.
What is something that is bringing you joy right now in your life?
So the way that I ask it is a small thing. And people will usually be like, it's my cat. I'm like, the cat is not a small thing.
What is a small thing?
Well, I'm thinking about a small thing.
But I'm greedy. I want a small thing and a big thing.
I mean, I love this time of the year. I love even though it kind of sucks for dog walking and other things, like I love how cozy it is at night, with like Christmas lights. And I love walking or like driving and seeing people's like trees in their windows and like their decor. I love Christmas lights. Like, love them. So that's a small thing, I guess. It's making me happy lately. And a big thing is Sailor. Yeah, having that relationship and that point of growth for both of us, and stretching to accommodate us both and myself in that role, and stretching the shop to accommodate her.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.